I was halfway through rinsing coffee grounds out of a French press when a stranger on Instagram guessed the exact name of the cartoon I watched every night when I was 8. Not just the show, but the episode where the dragon loses his hat and everyone pretends not to notice so he can discover his confidence. It's the sort of oddly specific memory only 2 people know about, my mom, and my boyfriend, Milo. The DM said, "Your stories are hilarious. Also, random, but weren't you obsessed with that Dragon Tales episode where the blue one can't find his hat? The confidence one?" My thumb froze over the heart icon like it had a cramp. The account belonged to someone named Evan. 0 posts. 21 followers. A profile picture of a lighthouse that looked suspiciously like the first photo result when you Google Moody Lighthouse. He'd replied to my story about a broken grocery cart with a joke so perfectly tailored it felt like a bespoke suit. "That cart isn't broken, it's just trying to set boundaries." I laughed. Then I frowned. Then I did the responsible thing and replied with, "Haha, thanks." My boyfriend would love that line, because I am an adult woman who knows you do not invite friendly strangers into your living room when you already live with someone. The next day he reacted to a video of my roommate's cat knocking a plant off the windowsill and somehow managed to make the cat's name into a pun I had literally made to Milo the week before. He asked what coffee I drink when I'm in an edit cave, which is what I call being hunched over Final Cut for 6 hours. I'd used that exact phrasing in a text to Milo. Then came the cartoon reference. My stomach sent up a flare. My brain said, "Okay, but maybe he's from your hometown or knows your mom or heard you say that on a live once." Except I never said it on a live. And my mom does not use Instagram. And I do not believe in lighthouses without a past. For context. Milo is kind. Funny in a way that sneaks up on you. The first night we met, he held the door open with such ceremonial seriousness that I asked if he was a butler in a past life, and he said, "No, but I was a bouncer at a yogurt shop." I said, "That's not a thing," and he said, "Tell that to the 2015 wave of sample cup abusers." He has a deep, old fear of being betrayed that he wears like a heavy coat even in July. His last girlfriend disappeared with a bartender and a refurbished espresso machine, leaving him with a Google Doc titled Shared Dreams that was just a list of cities and dog names. He says he's over it, and I believe him the way you believe a healed bone still aches when it rains. When we moved in together, we made a rule board on a whiteboard like camp counselors: no phones at dinner, ask before bringing home furniture off the curb, if you buy fancy ice cream, declare it first so it is sacred to the house. There was nothing on there about secret accounts on the internet, because you don't write down rules you can't imagine needing. We were not the couple who texts each other GPS pins every hour or demand screenshots of conversations. If he went out with friends, I waved and said, "Have fun." If I stayed late to edit, he left a bowl of cut fruit outside the door like a snack portal. We were, in other words, corny and comfortable. Evan arrived like a tiny helicopter you don't notice at first and then suddenly it's hovering right above your head. I kept my replies polite and sparse, the social media equivalent of nodding to a neighbor from across the street. He was good, though, good at sounding like the kind of person you already know. He'd send the kind of joke Milo makes, soft and clever, but just a degree off, the way a plagiarized essay swaps use for utilize. I mentioned it to my best friend, Katie, while we watched a baking show where everyone pretends collapsing meringue is a tragedy. She paused the TV and narrowed her eyes at me. "Do you think it's him?" "No," I said too fast. "He would never." But the cartoon. And the phrasing. And then Evan dropped a meme format that Milo and I invented last year for our group chat, where we caption a dramatic photo with, "I'll keep it short," and then do the opposite. It's an inside joke so dumb and specific that seeing it here felt like catching a glimpse of my living room lamp in someone else's window. I asked Milo casually, like I was mentioning a pothole that had appeared outside. "There's this account that keeps tmang me. He's weirdly funny. Kind of, you." He knew about the dragon hat episode. Milo frowned. That's creepy. His face did something complicated. I tried to read like a fortune cookie. Then he laughed it off. Maybe he's one of your old classmates. He kissed my forehead like a period at the end of a sentence and went to take a shower for the exact length of an episode of a prestige drama. When he came out, steam floating around him like he paid extra for special effects, he said, "Block him if it's weird." He never says block. He says ignore, mute, set boundaries. Block is nuclear. My stomach did that flare thing again. Katie said the words friends say when they're trying to get you to see the thing you're avoiding. If it's him, he'll make a mistake. Give him space to make it. So I did the opposite of blocking. I didn't flirt. I didn't confide. I just kept the door cracked enough for the draft to tell me which way the wind was blowing. When Evan sent, "I hate DMs, can I email you a funny story so I can use paragraphs?" I replied with an address Milo and I created for joint bills and travel confirmations that nobody else has because it's ridiculous, Waffle Sandia at. We made it on the couch, laughing about whether we were the kind of couple who needs a shared email, and decided to be that couple for the airline points. I watched the inbox like a hawk. 40 minutes later, a message slid in with the subject line, "I'll keep it short." I didn't open it. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred and I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. This is the part where the movie version of me would go wild. Printing screenshots, red stringing a corkboard, hiding under the dining table to record audio. In real life, I stood in the kitchen holding my phone like a hot pan and tried to decide whether I wanted to know. There's a world where the lighthouse guy is some bored student with too much time and the exact same sense of humor as my boyfriend. There's a world where Milo is an idiot who loves me and makes very bad choices when his fear drives the car. Both worlds require something from me. I made tea because that's what I do when I need to choose a door. In the morning I laid everything on the table. Not to trap him, but so I'd stop gaslighting myself by omission. I printed the profile page with the lighthouse. I printed the email subject line. I printed the cartoon quote in 12-point font like a crossword puzzle clue. Then I tucked it into a manila envelope and wrote, "Evidence, but make it cute," on the tab because if the world is going to collapse, I want it to collapse with a little style. When Milo came into the kitchen in his too big hoodie, hair doing the thing where it flips up like punctuation, I said, "Can we talk?" He said, "Always," which is our corny line that usually means we're about to be tender and instead meant I was about to lift the lid off something simmering. He saw the meme first. I watched the exact moment recognition touched his face. It's like watching a cloud pass over the sun. He didn't reach for the papers or pretend not to understand. He put both hands on the counter and let out a breath like he'd been holding it for a week. "It's me," he said. "I'm Evan." I had prepared a speech, a hurricane of words about trust and deception and the ridiculousness of lighthouses. The speech left my body without stopping to say hello. I laughed once, that short disbelieving laugh you make when you see a raccoon carry an entire pizza up a fire escape. Why? He didn't try to pretty it up. I panicked, he said. "I've been waiting for the other sneaker to drop since Joanna. I know that's not fair. I know you're not her. But every time something felt good, there was this little voice that said, you don't know yet. You don't know what she'd do if someone really tried. You don't get to relax until you know. I thought if I tested it, I could relax." His voice cracked on "relax" in a way that made me want to wrap him in a blanket and also made me want to throw my French press out the window. "So your plan," I said slowly, because if I went fast I would scream, "was to trick me into failing a test I didn't know I was taking, so that if I passed your test, you could trust me, and if I failed, you'd, what? Send me a report card?" He closed his eyes. "Break up," he said. "Or confront you. Or something. I don't know. I know it sounds monstrous." He looked very small in the kitchen. He looked like a child waiting to see if he'd be picked up or left behind at daycare. I love him. That did not change the fact that the floor had become a trampoline. The thing about betrayal is that you can feel betrayed even when no one kissed anyone. You can feel betrayed because you were turned into a hypothesis. I sat down because my legs asked me to. I'm not mad that you wanted reassurance, I said, surprising both of us. I'm mad that you outsourced it to a stranger version of yourself. You could have come into this room and said, I am afraid. I need help. I would have sat right here and built a fort out of every blanket we own and kept saying it's okay until your bones believed me. He wiped his cheek with his sleeve in that boyish way. I thought I was protecting us. I shook my head. You were protecting you from having to admit you were scared. We spent the next hour excavating. He told me about the latte machine. That Joanna left a note that said, it wasn't personal, which is the funniest and saddest sentence because what is more personal than choosing someone else in the middle of your life? He told me he hates being the one who needs things. I told him my dad used to say, are you sure, in a voice that made it sound like a threat, and how sometimes when people ask me for reassurance I want to send them a spreadsheet or a subpoena. We stared at each other across the crater we'd made and tried to figure out how to build a bridge with the rubble. I asked for two things. First, no more secret accounts. If you're curious about how I respond to something, ask me to my face and risk hearing the answer. Second, therapy. Together. He didn't flinch. Okay, he said. I'll make the call. He did, right there, thumb hovering, eyes on mine. He picked a counselor with a voice like warm bread named Dr. Lee who had Wednesday afternoon spots and plants in the background of her telehealth room that said, I know how to keep things alive. We also did something that felt silly and turned out to be smart. We wrote rules on the whiteboard under the ice cream one, no tests without consent, no reading each other's devices, ask for reassurance as a favor, not as an interrogation, and, because humor is our life jacket, if you catfish your partner, you do dishes for a month. Before the first therapy session, Evan messaged me again. Sorry I ghosted, how's your week? It was such a normal sentence it made my skin buzz. I put the phone on the table between us like a neutral ground. Do you want to answer him? I asked Milo. He swallowed. I watched muscles work in his jaw that I'd only seen when he concentrates on assembling IKEA. He typed, slowly, this account was created by me. That was wrong. Please delete this conversation. He hit send and then deleted the account in front of me, finger deliberate, like punctuating a sentence he'd been writing for days. Therapy was not a dramatic reveal so much as carefully moving furniture around a room so you can walk through it without bumping your shins. Dr. Lee asked, what feeling are you trying not to feel when you test, and Milo said, stupid. She nodded. What would it be like to feel stupid in front of someone who stays? He said he didn't know. She said, we're going to learn. She asked me, what's the story you tell yourself about what it means that he did this, and I said, that I'm a project, not a person. She said, what would it take for you to feel like a person again, and I said, for him to choose the discomfort of asking me for what he needs over the control of testing me. We wrote that down. We taped it to the fridge like a kindergarten masterpiece. The first week after that was a parade of small, awkward miracles. At the farmer's market, a woman flirted with him so sweetly I wanted to hire her to sell me everything, and later he said in the car, can you tell me I'm the only one you want? It was not suave. It was not movie dialogue. It was, however, honest. I put my hand on his knee and said, yes, I want you, and he said, thank you, like I'd passed him a glass of water. That night, I wanted to ask him to skip a hangout with his friends because I was feeling raw and clingy, and instead of inventing a stomachache or picking a fight, I said, I want you to stay home and watch trash TV with me because my heart is flabby today. He said, say no more, and brought home the good salsa. We were not cured. A few days later I fell into a doom scroll hole and caught myself clicking on the profile pictures of women who liked his latest photo. I laughed out loud, caught in the act of becoming the very thing I hated. I put my phone down and went into the living room, where he was attempting to teach himself guitar on YouTube and sounding like a lawnmower learning French. "I need you to tell me you didn't choose me because I'm convenient," I said. He put the pick in his mouth, frowned at me with concentration, and said, "I chose you because we make the same stupid joke about yogurt shop bouncers and because when my car battery died you said, 'We'll figure it out,' like it was a recipe we already knew." I kissed him while he still had the pick in his mouth, which I don't recommend, but 10 out of 10 for content. We told a few friends, not because we owed anybody an explanation but because secrets had done enough damage. Katie offered to officiate a ritual where we burned a printout of the lighthouse image, and we did it in a bowl in the backyard like witches with data plans. Our neighbor, who watches from her window like a friendly gargoyle, yelled, "Everything okay?" and I yelled back, "We're uncatfishing our relationship." She gave us a thumbs up, which is the exact amount of community oversight I want in my romantic life. Time passed. Boring, good time. We made a new whiteboard section labeled Reassurance Menu, like a diner. His side said, 1. Tell me you want me. 2. Hug for 1 full minute. 3. Say 3 reasons you trust me. My side said, 1. Tell me you're proud of me. 2. Sit next to me without your phone. 3. Say something you like about my brain. We tried not to weaponize it. We sometimes failed and then apologized. We joked about adding, 4. Return my hoodie from your mysterious closet cave, because that hoodie has debts to pay. The real relapse came one night when I left my phone on the couch and went to brush my teeth. When I came back, Milo was sitting there with his hands under his thighs like he'd sat on them to keep from doing something. "I wanted to look," he said, not meeting my eyes. I didn't. But I wanted to. I sat down next to him. "Thank you for telling me." We were quiet for a minute, hearing the hum of the fridge, the cat in the hallway interrogating a dust mote. "Do you think you'll always want to look?" I asked. He thought. "Maybe. Less and less, I hope. But maybe sometimes." I nodded. "Okay. When you want to, say it out loud. I'll say the thing you're trying to find. And if I can't say it then, I'll say when I can." He leaned his head on my shoulder. We watched a cooking show where someone used an immersion blender like a weapon and laughed until our ribs hurt. People always want a verdict. Would you have broken up if he didn't admit it? Would you have stayed if you'd opened the email and he'd been flirty? Would you forgive someone who catfished you? Those are fair questions. I don't have an answer that satisfies everyone because the answer depends on the day and the person and the lighthouse and the dragon hat. I know that if I had opened that email and found something that felt like betrayal, I would have been done. I know that the second I saw his face admit what he had done without making me drag it out of him like a bad tooth, I saw the version of us that could choose discomfort over control. That version is worth keeping. We kept therapy even when it felt like we were fine, in the same way you keep watering a plant even when it looks glossy. Dr. Lee taught us a phrase that sounds ridiculous and works like duct tape. The story I'm telling myself is, it removes a sword from your hand. The story I'm telling myself is that you wanted to test me because you think I'm sneaky. The story I'm telling myself is that you're going to leave if I ask for too much. Then the other person gets to go. That's not the story, here's the story. We got good at trading stories like kids swapping lunch items until both people have something they actually want to eat. Every once in a while I'll see a lighthouse on my feed and feel an echo, the way a healed bruise is tender for a second when you bump it. I send it to him with the caption, "Our villain origin story," and he sends back a selfie of him holding a sticky note that says, "Reality Quests," which is what we wrote in black marker and stuck over the whiteboard where the ice cream rule lives. On our anniversary he printed the phrase on a mug and the font is hideous and I use it every morning. A month or so after Evan died a quiet death, we went to the beach for a day that promised sunshine and delivered wind. We shivered behind our cooler and pretended not to care about sand in our grapes. A couple sat nearby taking photos of each other, and the girl kept checking her phone between takes like she was waiting for a different audience. I leaned back on my elbows and asked, "Do you ever miss the thrill of not knowing?" He said, "Honestly, sometimes. But then I remember how much I like knowing I can mess up and still be seen as someone trying." He tucked the blanket around my feet. "Do you ever wish you didn't have to reassure me?" I said, "Sometimes. But then I remember I get to tell you the truth and you believe me, and that's a better thrill." On the drive home I thought about tests. How they tell you something real, the sum of right answers in a particular room on a particular day with a particular kind of light. How they cannot tell you if the person next to you will pass you napkins when you cry in the kitchen at midnight because your brain made a monster out of nothing. How love is not a pass/fail course, it's an elective you have to keep choosing, semester after semester, sometimes when you'd rather drop out and nap. We still make mistakes. Last week I said, "Are you really wearing that?" in a tone that belonged to a sitcom mother, and he raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you want to try again?" and I did. Yesterday he sent me a text that just said, "Need a 2 from the menu," and I wrapped my arms around him for a full minute and listened to his breathing slow down like someone turning a dial. Tonight he's meeting friends, and I told him to have fun, and I meant it, and if there's a flicker of fear in my ribs I name it and put it on the table between us where we keep the salt and pepper, and then we eat. Sometimes I open that joint email and see the subject line still sitting there in the archive, "I'll keep it short." It's a strange monument. I leave it there on purpose. Not as a warning. As a reminder that we could have chosen to become detectives and suspects in our own house, keeping files on each other until the filing cabinet toppled. Instead we chose to turn the lights on, point at the monsters under the bed, and watch them scatter. We chose to be ridiculous together, two people who write, "no secret tests," in dry erase marker like it's a real rule anyone would need, and who enforce it with kisses and dumb mugs and the kind of earnestness that makes cooler people roll their eyes. If you're reading this looking for permission to ask for what you need instead of building a trap to catch someone not giving it to you, consider this your green light. If you're reading this wondering whether you should forgive someone who panicked and made a lighthouse, I can't tell you what your answer is. I can only tell you that mine was yes with conditions, yes with work, yes with a menu and a whiteboard and a counselor who says, "Try again," until trying again is the habit that replaced testing. The other night, as we were falling asleep, Milo whispered, "Can I ask you something dumb?" "Always," I said into the dark. "If Evan were real," he said, "do you think you would have liked him?" I rolled over and poked him in the chest. "I like the guy who asked me that question," I said. "He's my type." He laughed that quiet laugh that sounds like water settling. "Okay," he said. "I'll keep it short." Then he didn't, and we lay there saying too many words the way we like, piling them on each other until we were buried and safe. We don't talk about lighthouses much anymore. We talk about groceries and who's in charge of the laundry and which of our friends is in a spiral this week and whether we should get a dog and what we'll name him when we do. We've landed on Pancake. It's a working title. We talk about plans and fear and what it would look like to live big without living scared. And when one of us slips and reaches for the old habit, the other says, gently, "Real talk, not secret tests," and we come back like we promised we would, to the room where the whiteboard and the mug and the ordinary life are, to the place with no hidden quizzes, where the only grade that matters is whether we chose each other again today.